On Sunday, October the 12th, 2008, in so-called Gdańsk, Poland, a Eucharistic event took place that is worth looking at on this feast, as you will see. It was in the celebration of Holy Mass during this month of October in the parish church of St. Anthony that a consecrated host fell from the hands of one of the priests, distribution of Holy Communion. So the host was picked up and reverently placed in a container of water, so it would be dissolved. And normally, if that happens, it will dissolve and it can be placed then on sacred ground out of harm's way, because if the sacred species change in form completely, then the presence also goes away. But what was their surprise when that did not happen? A week after the event, it was discovered the host was still intact, but in the center of the host there was a curved, bright red stain, like a blood stain, a living particle of a body. The local archbishop ordered that the host be tested by science. A piece of the host was taken and analyzed in the department of pathomorphology at the Medical University of Białystok. The results were amazing. The fragment of host was found to be identical to the myocardial tissue of a person who is nearing death. That's heart tissue. Notice a person nearing death. The results also declared that no human hand could have created or fused heart tissue with the host. Now, it happens that that's not the first time that has come out of a scientific analysis. It's exactly the same that was found at Lanciano and in Buenos Aires. And it happens every time that any kind of miracle involving the precious blood comes to light. If it comes out of a statue or whatever, it's always the same that appears. Indeed, when the results of this analysis from Buenos Aires came to the still living professor who had done the work in the 70s on Lanciano, he cried out in amazement, not knowing where it came from, "È lo stesso uomo," it's the same man. And it's the man who has this curious DNA, which would be the case if St. Joseph is not involved. Now, this is telling us a lot of things discreetly in God's language, which we need to decode. Let's look back to what happened in the end of the 1600s, the time when still there was a certain hardness of heart coming from Jansenism and a loathing almost of what might be involved in approaching God in Holy Communion. It was coming to the bare minimum of what was required by Christians once a year, or not much more. It was more comfortable that way. God was so holy. And so in asking that people should use this sacrament and use it properly and more frequently, the Lord, by dropping this hint that a monthly communion would be in order, was actually doing something quite revolutionary. We forget the context of the time. And then, of course, came in the discipline of confessions available on vigils of First Fridays, which I still remember when growing up. On June the 1st, we mark the beginning of the month of the Sacred Heart. Now that also has its history. Pope Leo XIII, in his encyclical letter Annum Sacrum, established June as the month of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. This encyclical recommended that consecration of the entire human race to the Sacred Heart of Jesus should take place. It also recommended that the bishops of the world should promote First Friday devotions to the Sacred Heart. It was 1899. July also was made the month of the Precious Blood, and that Feast of the Precious Blood has been brought back in the new missal that we have at the beginning of July. It disappeared for about 40 years. Now, what is this telling us? It's telling us that the Lord is genuinely wanting to be a lover of souls and wants us to come in on that adventure, and that this deflection of the Catholic religion to some kind of discipline which wasn't getting to the essential of contact in the Eucharistic sphere was a deviation. It had to be readjusted. Would he say that today, or would he say perhaps something else? Beware, you've gone too far. There is a huge casualness about approaching the divine right now. By the way, I open a parenthesis. It was looked at carefully in the time of the publication of the canon law as we have it in 1983. I remember in school days that there was this possibility on certain special occasions, a funeral or something of that nature, to receive a second communion in one day. But there were exceptional cases, and there was a list of them. Now, that was being pushed, and there was then a certain uncertainty in people's minds. It was clarified in the publication of the discipline which was coming in there in 1983, and it was in this way expressed. Iterum was the key word. Another time. It was allowed within the same day, on condition that it was a full Mass. That's important. But then, because of the ambiguity of the word iterum, people asked, what actually does that mean? And the answer came from the Vatican in one of those official responses. It means this. Another time here means a second time, but not another and another. In other words, only one second one and not any other afterwards. And that's, if one looks carefully, coming in, and has come in, that people don't realize. And also the protection of Holy Communion has been whittled away since initially under Pius XII, with great precautions. It was brought, first of all, to 3 hours for solid foods. And then with the 1 hour, because pastoral life is somewhat complex, it was thought it would make it possible. But I remember hearing in France with regard to this, because people also come to it in confession and bring it up and think it's only something elastic and relative. I remember being told this. It was actually in the abbey there at La Trappe that Prior came out with this in chapter, noticing how the frustulum was being pushed back by some. And he said, look, plus l'église est large, plus il faut être strict. The more the church is broad, the more we have to be strict within its parameters. And he was explaining, this is the bare minimum 1 hour. And he was trying to get us to understand. So that's something to be borne in mind. The church is teaching us to be mature and to understand what the bare minimum is of preparation. Because the point is this, if we're not observing the bare minimum, what are we doing when we come to the Lord of Hosts? It's a tip of the iceberg, but mentally and spiritually we're not aware. Other things are more important. We're coming out of breath at the last minute and our stomach full. And even people who smoke until they come into the church, it's all an indication that we've lost the plot. Therefore the Lord might today, on this Feast of the Sacred Heart, say something a bit different. Yes, I am love, but I need my honor. And as it says in the prophet, I am a king, where is my honor? So we re-enthrone Jesus and give him his rights as King of Love on this feast day. All the rights, even physically. And it touches his heart when we give him beauty and splendour and space. Even flowers can touch the heart of our tender God. Do you know that one day a widow in distress came to Cure Vase and said that her husband had died and he wasn't into prayer, and she was concerned about his soul. And the Cure Vase said, do you remember those flowers that your husband helped you to pick for the Blessed Virgin? Our Blessed Lady obtained his salvation because she accepted them. And so it is that our King is one of us in his humanity, and in that humanity wants our intimacy. Yes, he is God, but his religion is not a religion of fear only. It's a fear which is based on not upsetting the heart of the one that we love, and that is the true optic. When that is there, the rest will follow, including the way that we embrace each other in that love. And if in the house of God there is coldness and hurt, again, we've not understood. In this feast then, in the Eucharist especially, we meet the loving heart of a living friend who, as a pauper, pleads for authentic love and not abandonment in the tabernacle for hours on end, and coldness and noise even in the house where he reigns on earth.